I'm checking yes. I think the Winnipeg Jets are for real. I also think the Vancouver Canucks maybe are back as we go out to the West Coast and welcome in Farhan Lalji. A couple of wins in a row for the Canucks, and is all good again for Vancouver?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, they seem to be playing a bit more of a complete game, especially in the last game. The Tampa game earlier was a little bit up and down, and they were able to play a very good third and kind of get it done in overtime. But they're still waiting for, some of their best players to show up a little bit, right? All eyes are going to be on Elias Pedersen in this market, right? Until he can kind of get it going on a consistent basis. But, they got a good goaltending performance out of Kevin Lankinen in the last couple of games. So, he's had a good week. So they want to get that spot solidified until Thatcher Demko gets back. So right now he's probably going to get to carry the ball a bit. So, first three games, there's a lot of nervous people in Vancouver, but the last two have settled things out a bit. And then they'll play again tonight here and see if they can come home after a successful trip.
Everything seems to be pretty settled down. The UBC Thunderbirds are rolling, Canucks are back on track, and the BC Lions, big winners over Montreal. You got your quarterback now. Is all good now with the Lions?
Yeah, you look for this season for sure. I think they made the decision that in hindsight was probably one they should have made earlier, right? And I understand, revisionist history is always easy for everybody, right? And I do understand why they kind of made some of the decisions that they did when they did them, based on VA's initial injury, to Nathan Rourke's availability, to him playing really well in back-to-back games around the same time that Vernon Adams was healthy enough and ready to come back. But, you can also look at it from the other side. And many in that BC Lions locker room have looked at it on the other side. That, look, this guy, it was his team. He put in all the offseason work. The club treated him unfairly, and that they should have treated him the way they treated Nathan Rourke in 2022. People look back at that 2022 season and think, wow, like Rourke was so magnificent. But if you look at Vernon Adams' numbers prior to his injury, they weren't that far off, especially through the first 6 games. I know games 7 and 8, there was a little bit of a step back, but his numbers up until then, I mean, he was the clear front runner for MOP, and, we were talking about 6,000 yards pace and things like that. So, could they have treated him differently? But people talk about a divided locker room, and are they settled now? Well, room wasn't divided. It seemed pretty clear that they all wanted VA, as we got deeper into it, to have been treated a certain way. And now I think things are settled.
And the injury to VA didn't help the situation either. Forcing Nathan to come in, the timeline of everything, that kind of forced Rick Campbell's hands a little bit.
Oh, sure. Look, when it happened the way it did, and I think VA's injury kind of spurned Nathan Rourke, right? Like the timing of it, and we'll take it a layer deeper, right? When VA had those 2 games before the injury, and his numbers weren't what they were before, many people believe that it was Nathan Rourke's availability, like he was bouncing from team to team, right? Like from New York and from New England to New York to Atlanta, that uncertainty around Nathan Rourke's NFL status might have been in the back of Vernon Adams' mind. Then all of a sudden, Vernon Adams gets injured and Nathan's been moved on from his 4th team. He admitted that, that situation prompted him to push forward with maybe a bit of an accelerated timeline to come back to the CFL, knowing he could play right away. Me personally, I think he made a bad decision, or I think his agent advised him poorly. And it was Nathan's first call to make, but I think his agent should have said, calm down, don't make an emotional decision, and stick around for a bit, from the perspective of both leagues, because Nathan would have been better served coming back in the offseason when everything was clean, right? I think, but from Rick Campbell's perspective, you had Vernon Adams hurt. He was going to be out a month, probably a little longer. And all of a sudden, this guy that you remember from 22 is available. Yeah, you put him in the lineup right away. And then, his 3rd and 4th games, he played at a really, really high level. So now it becomes more difficult to hand the ball back immediately to Vernon Adams. So, you understand why some of the decisions are made. Like the only bizarre decision in all of it for me was that Toronto game when they threw Vernon Adams in at halftime. Everything else you could rationalize at some point. Did it work out? Nope. Are they in a better place right now? Yep. Is it too late? We'll see.
Yeah. Interesting. 2 days, different ways we're going to go with this. But first, stay in the CFL. And Interesting conversation that's come up around Bo and the MOP situation. I'm curious, how you and some of the other media across the league are kind of viewing this. Another 450 yards, 5 touchdowns. Will Bo garner some votes for MOP, and should he be in that consideration?
He'll garner some, but he's not going to win it. I just think that it's you can't you can't be that guy if your team's going to miss the playoffs. And you look, I got all the time in the world for Bo Levi Mitchell. I'm thrilled that he's coming back to hang out with us at TSN during the playoffs. Actually, I don't know if that's even been decided. I'm just assuming it because he does such a good job the previous 2 years. He'll get some votes, and I think he comes out of the East, right? Because there's just no logical candidate in the East, in terms of Montreal. There's no logical vote getter there, on the offensive side, because Cody's been up and down and banged up, and first 6 games, Tyson Philpott was their MOP, and he's been out for more than half the season. So there's no obvious candidate in Montreal. Chad Kelly's missed half a season in Toronto, so there's nothing there. Ottawa doesn't have that guy either. Drew Brown, missed the last few games here. So I just don't see it. So could Bo win it in the East only because of that reason? Sure. But in the West, you probably get Brady Oliveira coming out of it. And I think Brady Oliveira will win it, right? Because the record, what Winnipeg was able to get done in the second half of the season, I think is impressive to a lot of people. But ultimately, I just think there aren't going to be enough voters that can wrap their head around a non-playoff player, regardless of position, winning an MOP. And I'm one of them.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. It's been a great season. You just needed them to get into the playoffs to take that a little bit more seriously. Now, lastly, on Nathan's brother Curtis and that great story in Indiana. ESPN's going to take College Game Day there on Saturday, which is going to be cool. But he's out. Do we know how long he's out for and how serious this is, his thumb injury?
Well, I know he's going to see a specialist in the coming days here, and they're optimistic that it's not going to be serious and force him to miss a number of games. But I'm conflicted. Like, I'm a massive University of Washington fan. Like, their helmet's right there on my wall. I know I don't have the clean, tight shot, but I was at the Michigan game. I'm a huge Washington fan, so the fact that Curtis Rourke's not going to play in that game, I love Kurt, and I've gotten to know him, and I wish him nothing but health, and I want him to be the all Big Ten quarterback and be a Heisman top 10 guy and elevate his NFL draft stock and all of that, but just don't play against Washington. But it doesn't sound like it's a season-ending injury. It doesn't sound like it's overly serious. So, you might miss a game or two here, but we'll know more as the week progresses here once he sees that specialist.
Good. Looking forward to that. And before we let you go, congrats on the BC Football Hall of Fame induction on the weekend. That was cool. Tell us a little bit about the ceremony and the great class you were in, too.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and when you walk up on stage and Louis Pasagli and Jamie Terrace are there to present it to you, that's a pretty cool moment. I'm going into the Canadian Football Hall of Fame as well in November, but as a media member, right? This one meant a lot to me because it was as a builder. And I've given 30 plus years of my life to the sport in this province, and it's given me so much back. So I am very, I'm a BC guy, right? I'm a football guy, but I'm a BC guy, and it matters to me that we've been able to help the sport grow, and for me to go into that with some of my mentors, names like, you wouldn't know them, but names like George Oswald and Larry Rita and some people locally, that meant a lot. But then to go into it with this class, including my SFU brethren like Julio Caravata and Glenn Suter. That was really, really cool for me, especially at a time when, SFU football is kind of off the map right now. And, we hope it's not dead, even though it looks like it is. But to go in with those guys, Paul McCallum in that class, Sean Olson in that class, so there were a few, Mike Emery and others, but it was a real good class by BC standards and names and people that have given so much and had so much success. So it was a lot of fun. I had a great after party afterwards, and there's like 120 people that rolled in and out of there. And just to be able to reconnect with so many people that I haven't seen in so long was really heartwarming as well. So a lot of fun and a recognition that means a tremendous amount to me.
Well earned. Congratulations, and appreciate you carving some time out this morning.
All right. Thanks for having me.
All right. Farhan Lalji, TSN, joining us, and new inductee to the BC Football Hall of Fame.